Right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back for another episode of the Green Room. So excited that you guys chosen to kick it with us. Today, we've got a special guest, a friend of mine, Michael Ford, who we will ask some questions to and learn about his journey. But just to level set everybody, if this is your first time hanging out in the Green Room, we are basically focused on highlighting the stories of Black and Brown creatives across different industries and different paths to give you a sense of, what your future could look like if you were to land in the tech industry, for example, like Michael, or in another spot, and give you just some free game, stuff that we've done and been successful with, but then also the stuff that we've tried and maybe not been successful with, so that you can have a perspective as you go into the different consideration points for your career, for your education, for your continuous development as a human being. So yeah, that's what we're here for. It'll be a nice, casual, calm down conversation between us. And yeah, with that, Mike, I'll give it over to you to give an introduction of, who you are, where you are, what you're up to, and then we'll take the Q&A from there.
Sure. So good afternoon. My name is Michael Ford. I'm based in Chicago, and I'm actually from Chicago originally, besides some time I spent in the DC area in North Carolina. Right now, I am what's called a pre-sales architect for Red Hat, who is a company based in selling open source solutions for customers, business to business sales. And I guess just so correct me, Brandon, what else are we saying here?
Yeah, who you are, where you are. I think you got that. What you're up to. So you got the job down.
Yep.
You mentioned you grew up in Chicago, so tell the folks a little bit about kind of the place that you grew up in, your community.
Yeah. So I spent my childhood in the Beverly area,
Mhm.
graduated of Clissold School on Western, and then I moved over to the Hyde Park area in high school. When graduated Whitney Young High School, and then you and I, Brandon, met an undergrad at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and like I said before, spent a little bit of time in the DC area immediately afterward, and then in North Carolina with Cisco, where I spent more time as a colleague with Brandon, and then after that, back to Chicago. I think that was 2012. So ever since, I've been back here.
Yeah, yeah. Time flies when you're having fun, man. I still remember some of those days at the University of Illinois, like working on projects together and, uh, drinking coffee to stay up, to have enough strength to get through it. And then,
For sure.
we were working part-time jobs, we were schooling, and we were trying to prepare for internships and the whole 9 yards. So
Absolutely.
it's good to know that those seeds planted like way back in the day have turned into something positive for our parents and our community to be proud of, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's I was gonna say I was gonna bring that up if you didn't, but I remember those times in the Nesby office, whether it's trying to study for exams and like you said, just stay up super late trying to get homework done.
Yeah.
That was some fun times, some challenging times, but a lot of fun too.
Yeah. For folks that aren't up on Nesby, Mike, you want to give them the rundown? What's Nesby all about?
So Nesby is the largest student-run organization in the country. It stands for National Society of Black Engineers. Really, as far as I know, there's a chapter pretty much on every campus, and it's really about fostering growth and development of uh, candidates in engineering and undergrad and graduate school. They have a great conference that happens. Hopefully, it'll come back. I'm sure it was virtual this past year, but great way to network with people, really great job fairs, really a great way to make some lifelong friends, case in point. And really, I think that it was really one of the vehicles that helped me be successful in undergrad and really afterwards too.
Yeah, I remember getting on campus and thinking, I got this. I was a great high school student. I could do this by myself. And then, like, what did Mike Tyson say? Like, you got to
Everyone
get hit
has a
in the
plan
face.
until they get hit.
So after that first semester, I was like, "Ooh, I just got hit in the face. Let me go and hang out with the Nesby folks and build a community so I can be successful here in college and not like get the grades that I got first semester, which I will not name or announce right now. But yeah, I think even back to memorizing the NSBE like mission statement, and I could still like I could literally tell you, I'll do it right now. Like we're trying to culturally or build culturally responsible kind of engineers who what was it? Excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. So like we're talking about 15, 20 years later, kind of the mission statement of that organization still like hanging with me and being a part of what I do in my job. So yeah, great thing to reflect on, and great to see the organization is still alive and doing well. And in the face of like a bunch of HBCUs receiving money, and like seems to be like a focus on leveling the playing field academically and professionally as folks get jobs. Any commentary on kind of what we've seen just in the recent months, Mike?
Oh, as far as um, just with all the movements in Black Lives Matter with companies, or that's what really comes to mind for me. Is that kind of what you're referring to, or just in general?
Yeah, you can give a few thoughts there. And then I've also noticed that HBCUs have received quite a bit of financial support, and it seems like there's a concerted focus to make sure that those schools are well resourced. I know that neither of us have went to a HBCU, but we care deeply about making sure that folks who are Black and brown do get access to opportunities and the ability to like economically empower themselves and make, you know, good decisions for themselves and for their families.
So I mean, I did not, as you know, I didn't go to an HBCU, but my sister did. I don't know a single person that has, just kind of lukewarm support for their HBCU if they graduate. Really great relationships that you can build there. I've seen it for people that have come out of there. And honestly, I think that that's very important to make sure that we resource or fund those schools, on a regular basis and more readily, to make sure that they have the same opportunities that ultimately you and I have, and make sure we have some exposure to the opportunities that are out there that it really took me time to come across even outside of undergrad. So if we can expose students to the opportunities that come with having an engineering degree, whether it's quote unquote traditional engineering job or whether it's something else that you can do with it. And if that comes with increased funding, then I'm all about it. And I'm glad that's happening.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned kind of an engineering degree. Tell the people like what kind of degree you have, and like after you graduated, how did you put it to good use? Like what's been your journey thus far?
So my undergraduate degree is from University of Illinois, and that's in computer engineering. From there, immediately after undergrad, that's when I came to the DC area to work for a defense contractor. And while I was there was a program where Johns Hopkins let you go through for professionals, and it was actually, I think it was called the Executive Professionals Program or something to that effect. But ultimately, went through that in their Gaithersburg campus, and then got my master's in computer science. So really, from there, I like software development. That's
Mhm.
cool, but I really enjoy really stuff like this where I get to talk to people about solving problems and just have great conversations. And with that in mind, I have a couple of friends that went through sales training programs. So in particular, the Cisco sales training program, and really took my graduate degree and used that as leverage to apply for the Cisco sales training program. And really, ever since then, that gave me my exposure to a different kind of engineering where I can still be technical, like I would and like I enjoy doing, but also have the opportunity to have those conversations both with my peers and also with customers. And again, talking about solving those problems. And really, my career up until this point has been generally geared towards that, with differing focus on the kind of technology that I usually talk about. But that's how I ended up where I am today with Red Hat.
Nice, nice. And walk people through like what is a typical kind of day in the life of a solutions architect at Red Hat look like for you?
Sure. So as you probably would, same thing for you, there's not a quote unquote typical day,
Mhm.
but it depends on what meetings I have with clients. Some days I might not have any client meetings. Some days I might have a full day of client meetings. But really, the majority of my time is spent on, I would say one of three things, whether it's work related, just with respect to work. So either I'm in front of a client and I've prepared ahead of time to talk about the particular business problems they're having and hopefully talk about how our solutions can really help solve those problems. I should be doing a lot more listening and talking on those calls because really I want to understand what they're doing and not just throw things at them. So I might be in client meetings or like I kind of alluded to, the second thing I might be doing is actively preparing for those meetings. So whether it's doing research on the company or working on some demonstration that I want to show to solve their particular challenges, I understand it before I walk in. So I might be working on those deliverables. Or I really spend a lot of time, especially now that we have more time at home, I'm always trying to learn more and study and get stronger. Uh, there's lots of resources out there now, whether it's two that I'm using right now are Code Cloud or a Cloud Guru. There's
Mhm.
also the Red Hat training as well. And between all those three resources, I'm always trying to pick up new skills so I can make sure to stay on top of things. So I'm knowledgeable. I'm not always going to know everything, but hopefully, um, I'll know enough to navigate the conversation. And really in the worst case, if I don't know about something, I'll make sure to pick it up after the fact.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're dropping dimes about preparation, and we're in like the NBA playoff season right now. And I remember watching Derrick Rose, another Chicago guy, say after game two that proper preparation prevents poor performance. So like this 5 P's quote, I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. I need to steal that. And I think the same thing that he was talking about, preparing in the summertime, in the weight room, nobody's looking at you,
Yep.
will help you to shine when the pressure's on. So when you talk about like, okay, let me go through my demo flow, let me make sure what I'm saying is clear, let me make sure that I've listened, 2 ears, one mouth, enough to understand that, um, I need to really listen to understand the nature of the problem that was stated. But then there's also sometimes problems underneath problems and stuff that's like around the corner that the customer doesn't know about that you know about
Right.
because of your position. So yeah, I just want to really harp on that to let people know that um, no matter what field you're in, you're not going to be able to get away from preparation if you want to perform well. So
Always.
thanks for digging into that a little bit, Mike.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we just like dove into it, but like, last 12 to 18 months has been interesting times for everybody. So let me rewind and go back to like the self-care question, just in terms of how you're doing, how you're coping with 2020 and 2021 so far.
I mean, I, I'm not going to say anything that hasn't already been said. It was crazy.
Mhm.
This time last year, we were in the thick of things. Um, Chicago has now started to open up, and it's funny because I was driving down 53rd Street in Hyde Park last week, and it's good to see people out and about. But I
Yeah.
will say, really during the past year, I've just tried to make sure to keep in touch with the people that I love and care about, and check in on folks, um, especially with my family.
Yep.
Uh, that kind of thing. Trying to take care of. Well, actually, I got married back in December of 2019, so that's been an interesting first year. But really just trying to make sure that my wife and I are doing the things, even if we're inside, to make sure to have fun and do a lot of fun things together. And actually, it's been fun with a lot of. I'm thinking about the Green Mill, for example, in Chicago. I'm just naming one example of outlets that have had virtual shows, so that's been really good. Lots of meditation, lots of working out. Actually, I think the good thing about this is I probably won't pick up another gym membership afterwards because I have a whole set of equipment here,
Yep.
but really just kind of focusing on the things that are therapeutic for me, whether, and kind of really all those things put together. I think the relationships more than anything you know, keep me sane and keep things from getting too crazy. And I think that's what really carried me through this past year.
Yeah. Same here, bro. Like, and maybe another question that I'll ask is, early in your career, you jump into kind of a corporate job and, you're like hustling, you're trying to grind to show that, I'm worth being here. You made a good decision, you made a good bet on me.
Mhm.
Um, and to your last point about making time for non-work stuff to make sure that your balance is right and that you feel good and that your family's okay. I find for myself that I get like a little bit of withdrawal almost where I'm sitting on the couch watching the show and just kicking it. And I feel like lightweight guilty for like, taking time for myself. How's it been for you to go from that one mode when you first started to like, okay, shifting into the second mode that feels a little bit more balanced?
Oh, as far as so just to be clear, you're talking about the grinding and work, but then also the second mode being taking more time to myself with more work-life balance. I just want to make sure I got your question right.
Yeah. So if previously, you were used to, hustling on a job, you're getting educated, you're getting a master's degree,
Hmm.
probably not a lot of time for yourself. And now we moved over to, I'm older and wiser now, and I'm going to make the decision to set boundaries and to make time for stuff like working out and meditation and like what I need in order to get balance. Um, how has that transition been from like those two different kind of modes of operating?
I mean, at the end of the day, yes, it's selfish and therapeutic, but it's also how can I make sure that I am the best that I can be for the sake of still those other people,
Mhm.
my family, first and foremost, my coworkers, and everybody else. I am useless to people unless I take the time to do the things that make me feel good and make me healthy. So, you know, I look at that as doing a service not only for myself, obviously for myself first, but I kind of think about it like I need to do these things so I can be fruitful and helpful when I come back to the job. So I think it's easy to think about things in a way like, hey, I'm being selfish or stuff like that. But if I put things in that perspective, I think there's a difference between just being lazy, but versus actively, there's therapy in taking time to sit down and watch The Office and chill out, right? And I need that time. I think everybody needs that time to make themselves useful for themselves and useful for others. So I try to look at it from that perspective.
Public service announcement. You heard it here, folks, from Michael Ford. Take some time out for yourself. Do what you have to do, and even find a new hobby. Like some stuff that I enjoy now, I didn't even know that I would like. Riding my bike recently. Trying to get back out onto the golf course and get
Mhm.
fresh air, and that kind of thing. What are some like hobbies and things outside of work that you've picked up recently, or that you've always done, and that you get a little bit more time to do now?
So two things come to mind for me. I've always enjoyed working out, but um, because I haven't been going to the gym as much, I was like, how do I get the most effective workout I can with little equipment?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm not the only one because there was a shortage, but kettlebells, like that's my new jam. And honestly, it's like for anybody that doesn't know, it's somebody called it a cannonball with a handle. That's pretty much what it is.
Mhm.
And at first I didn't think much of them because I was like, these aren't real weights, but
Yeah.
that's my new hobby. That's pretty much the only way I work out. It does everything as far as, strength training, cardio, all that stuff is built into this little tiny thing. You can get more out of it by lifting heavier weights, but even my largest weight is like 60 pounds. So it's not super, super crazy and it's super effective though. So that's one hobby I'll say is kettlebelling. And then the other one, I've always been a fan of barbecue,
Mhm.
but what I didn't realize until recently was the power of like a Weber kettle. I didn't think of kettle grill. I think of grill. I do burgers and hot dogs and stuff on that. But I, just again, researched on forums or subreddits for barbecue and smoking. That's another thing I've picked up where not so much the barbecue itself, but the tools that I'm using are different. And I think I've become more effective there too. And it's almost like I enjoy the preparation and all the stuff involved in the act of barbecue more so than the food itself, just because of the techniques I'm learning. If I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's
Oh, it does. Totally. A lot of even going to like baseball games, for example, like the act of watching the game is like bottom of the totem pole. It's the like the pizza, it's the people, it's the fresh
Yeah.
air, it's the peanuts, it's like everything around it that makes it valuable for me. And there's probably a whole lot of other things like my musicianship, for example, to sit down and play an instrument is a whole different thing than to like be in community with a band and to be like, improvising off of each other. And that's like the fun part for me. So that point totally resonates. And probably for folks on this call who will watch it later, like that's something that they'll be able to relate to for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. So let's go to a little bit of a lightning round just to switch it up just a bit. And I'll ask you some quick questions about random different things. And you give me the first couple of things that pop to your mind.
Oh, man.
So since this community college green room concept has community and college in it, let's start academic first. So give us a couple of either podcasts or books or things that you kind of do to kind of educate yourself in a traditional or maybe non-traditional way. Where some of your favorite outlets to get knowledge?
Oh, to get knowledge? Well, so there's one that's like, it's kind of knowledge, but it's not work related knowledge. One of my
Okay.
favorite podcasts ever is called Under the Influence.
Okay.
Uh, I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it's a gentleman named Terry O'Reilly.
Okay.
He is a radio marketing or former radio marketing executive out of Canada. And he really talks about the history of marketing. Like, for example, he might choose a topic of the history of, there was one where he talked about how the history of using deceased celebrities in marketing and how that's worked, or some other like just interesting, crazy topics, or the history of Super Bowl marketing, how that came to be and how it's evolved to where it is today. And it's funny because I listen to it and there's sometimes where there's a Canadian twist on it because he's from Canada. Right. So he might make reference to certain things that I don't understand. Or he might talk about Tim Hortons, for example, which is not something you find here in the United States. It's Canadian. But that's been something, it's educational, but it's not work related. And I just love listening to that. For stuff that is more work related, there's a couple of podcasts I listen to. So Packet Pushers is one that I listen to on a regular basis. There's some networking stuff there, but they're getting more into cloud and native tech. The New Stack Makers is a podcast I listen to because I'm really interested in containers and Kubernetes. One that's not work related at all in the slightest is The Read. So I listen to that quite a bit too. On Tuesdays, I'm usually working out and listening to The Read. So those are the things. That's definitely not for learning. It's just a pleasure to listen to that.
Yeah. Thanks for those. And I'm sure people will pick up what you're putting down and start to check out some of those ones. You mentioned Canada, which is making me think about travel, and you mentioned things opening up before. Like, what are some places that maybe you've been that you're excited to go back to now that things are starting to open up, or maybe places on your bucket list that you and your wife have not yet made it to, but you're excited to try out in the future?
So I'll start off with the place where we'd like to go next, and that's South Africa.
Okay.
We were planning a trip there. We were not able to make it, but that I would say is, even if it's not immediately next on our list, that's someplace that we'd like to go. And then the places where I know that she would like to go there too, but I think I can safely say this. So 2 places we'd like to go back is I went to Tokyo for the second time. We went to Tokyo rather for the second time in 2019, I believe. So we'd like to go back there just because I love everything about the food. It almost seems like they're technologically advanced almost in every way. Even the train system's crazy, so that's kind of fun. And it's just a good time to go back to Tokyo and also other cities in Japan. And then the last place that we'd like to go back to is Barcelona. Just being around, we'd be out late at night. Our days in Barcelona would start very late, but it didn't matter because it seemed like everything was happening late at night. Everyone was hanging out, having a good time.
Yeah.
And when things truly open back up and you can have crowds safely together again, I know that we'd love to be back there.
Yeah. I saw a Tiny Desk. I forget the name of the artist, but it was a Spanish artist, and they were like young and old people all around. And they had the fashion, they had the There's something about the Spanish swag that I really like. And being a former soccer player too, I've
Mm.
followed some of their footballers and stuff like that. So yeah, I might put that one on my list. I've never been to Spain, but you're making me salivate and want to go out there at some point.
It's great. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Real quick before you go to your next question, I know it's a lightning round. The place where I would suggest that you go is Sevilla, which is a very small town. So we went there we actually went to Madrid, Barcelona, and Sevilla. In a way I like that most of all, just because it was tiny. We did some cooking there. It was just a great place to just walk around and take a break from the hustle and bustle in
Yeah.
the evenings of Barcelona.
Yeah. Let's do I'll go to kind of foods next.
Sure.
I know that, people that I have on here like have such a wide range. And you mentioned the food in Tokyo, but like what's your favorite thing to like maybe what's your go-to like in a normal week, something that you eat all the time, that you cook all the time, and then when you're traveling, what are some things that you've had that are maybe unexpected, delicacies or things that you're like, oh man, I should have done this years ago, and this is my first
Oh my
time
gosh.
doing it.
So it's what we've done recently. So going back to the barbecue
Mhm,
piece. So there's actually, so going back to your first question, actually, some things that I learned.
mhm,
There's a great channel on YouTube called Binging with Babish,
mm,
where the gentleman there, he actually does a lot of food from movies and television shows, but he also does something called Basics with Babish, where he talks about basic meals.
mhm,
And I've never been excited about whole roasted chicken until I saw this man do it. So I'll actually do something where you butterfly the chicken, where you take out the backbone, lay it flat to have it cook more evenly, and then we throw it on the kettle grill. And it's indirect, so you don't put it directly over the fire, you put it to the side.
yeah.
But if you do that, you throw a little bit of cherry wood in there, it is just, it's it's awesome. You cannot fail. Put a temperature probe in there to make sure it's the exact right temperature. And I've never been so excited about whole chicken. I am now. No joke. Um, and then as far as foods that I thought were crazy when I went out, to be honest, like a lot of stuff in Tokyo was just great. So two things that come to mind for me. Um, the ramen in Chicago is great, but I think if you find little hole in the wall spots in
Mhm,
Tokyo, that's some of the best ramen I've ever had, that we've ever had, rather. And then there's actually something else. I went once and I found it. I made sure that my wife's had it too, so we both have the same opinion. But it's almost like an ice cream sandwich, but it's like, imagine like a thin waffle
mhm,
around the ice cream, but also a very thin chocolate bar in the middle of everything.
mm,
So it's crazy because let's say it's maybe yay tall and yay wide. It is excellent, and they're super cheap. They're in every convenience store, and
mhm.
that's one thing where like we found it, and it's just like, why don't we do this here? This is great.
So definitely not a delicacy, just something that's just accessible. Everybody can buy it. You can find it in a lot of places.
Yes, it's not, it's everywhere. You go to, well, every convenience store pretty much is 7-Eleven. So you go to any 7-Eleven
Yep.
in Tokyo, you can find that. It's great.
Yeah. Another fun fact about Tokyo, like I never thought of like 7-Eleven as the bank, but I went to 7-Eleven so many times when I ran out of money there. So
Yes.
for people to think of a store or a place as one thing, and then you go to another country and you see it like in a whole different light. That was 7-Eleven for me in Japan for sure.
That was wild. Yep.
Let's move over to, I'll do the last question in this round. How about a
Sure.
laugh out loud question? So laughter helps us get through many of the last 12 to 18 months worth of stuff. So what's the last thing, maybe your wife did it, maybe you heard some joke, or what's the last thing that made you like literally laugh out loud?
Oh my gosh. So at the risk of spoilers, can I talk about spoilers for Falcon and the Winter
Hey
Soldier already?
man.
So have you seen all of Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I remember the instant that we saw Battlestar for the first time. So we're watching the scene
Mhm.
where um, where Falcon and Bucky are fighting on top of those moving trucks.
Yeah.
And we see John Walker show up in his Captain America outfit, and we expect to see him. All of
Yeah.
a sudden, we see somebody swinging by. We're like, is that his black friend? And
Yeah.
so he comes down and they bump elbows. I have never seen my wife laugh so hard. She just like fell out laughing. Both of us thought it was hilarious. She
Mhm.
just went, she fell over. We thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. I really enjoyed what they did with that whole series. So like shout
Very
out
much
to, I
so.
mean, if there are people who are watching it that contributed in any form or fashion, on behalf of Mike Ford and me, thank you. Very
I will
well done.
say, I've been waiting for Sam Wilson as Captain America for years, and just to see that happen for real, I thought it was incredible. So very well done.
Yeah, so let's move to maybe that person who's out there trying to contemplate how they're going to break into kind of tech or corporate America, or for somebody who just graduated, like this is graduation season right now and is trying to land a job that's going to be remote because we're not all the way back yet. What are some like tips and tricks or some advice that you would give to like this generation of folks who are getting ready to kind of enter into the work world and the workforce?
So I think there's two things that I would say, especially now, that are one thing that's available to folks now that I don't think was as readily available to us, and that's learning and building thought leadership. And I think the difference between in back in our day, it's kind of weird to say that now, but back in our day, we didn't have all these online resources where you could just have an internet connection and a couple bucks and start to learn things. And I think that that's the only thing that it costs you. I won't say the only thing, but the majority of what it costs you is your time to
Mhm.
go to these websites and just pick up stuff and learn. And a lot of times, you don't have to pay a lot of money to a cloud provider. They might have a free tier where you can pick up stuff and learn. Take advantage of that stuff to build those initial skills because it's out there. And then also, uh, this is something that I'm actively still working on right now, but put a body of work out there. So for me, I use a website called GitHub to post the projects that I'm working on.
Mhm.
And that makes, it's for me, it's primarily for my customers. And so they can see the things that I'm working on, my demonstrations. But for the person that's in school, it's a great way to build a body of work. It's almost like a portfolio so people can see what you're working on before you actually walk into the room for an interview. And then that really brings me to my next point. One thing, and I will say, there was points in undergraduate where I was really, concerned about like what was my future going to be, uh, with my grades. Just they weren't bad, but they weren't like stellar like some of the people that I was around. But I think more than anything, and I've seen this a lot during my time in the field, networking trumps everything.
Yeah.
Uh, and really, it's just getting out there, obviously, as things open back up more safely, but just get out and network with people and make sure they know who you are, build relationships, because at the end of the day, this is true, a general term, people buy from people they like, but people hire people they like. And if you take the time to network and let people know who you are, let people know that you're passionate, what you're working on, and just show a propensity for learning, I would bet on a person that has a propensity for learning and passion any day of the week. So that's my two kind of general things, is network and also take the time to learn and build a body of work. And I think that those avenues, at least the learning and building a body of work, that stuff is more easy to do now than it was when we were in undergraduate.
Yeah. Let me go devil's advocate on you and be like, but Mike, I'm an introvert and I don't like talking to people and like putting myself out there that much. Like, can you make it easy for me? Like, what are some things that I can do as an introvert that would help me to network and help me to do what you just said?
That is an excellent question. I mean, honestly, I look at, so let's go back to the online piece.
Mhm.
Well, so I'll say a couple things. I do think if you have anyone that you know in your network that to at least bounce ideas off, like you, Brandon, everyone that's watching this video likely has a connection with you. So even just being in a safe space with somebody that you trust and know to ask about, hey, Brandon, what do you think about, this job, or how can I break into these roles or anything like that? Just starting small. You don't have to be in a huge room with people.
Yeah.
in order to get that started. It's just really just building one relationship at a time. And that's actually a lot of what I do. I don't talk to a bunch of people at once. I usually talk to smaller groups of people, maybe one or two folks at a time, and that goes a long way. And then the other thing is there are so many forums out there where you have like-minded people
Mhm.
that are trying to learn or trying to pick up new skills. And it's a great way to maybe not be in front of folks if you're not comfortable there, but whether it's through, I'm just thinking Facebook or Reddit or something else where you can just kind of share ideas of the things you're working on. It could be a way to make you feel safer, but also exchange ideas. And, I'm sure there's other forms too, just nothing else comes to my mind right this instant, but that's what I might suggest to start with.
Yeah, and I can tag onto that too. Like, you don't have to be fake necessarily to network. Like, you like what you like. So
Right.
if you wanted to find a community around the Avengers and people that like to talk anime or like to talk whatever it is that you like, I would wager that there's like a way to connect that personal like to something that would connect you to a person to get you maybe from a professional standpoint, one step or two steps ahead. And I was on a call earlier today with a guy who is basically the founder of a company, and he mentioned having a friend in the town like right behind me in East Palo
Mhm.
Alto, saying, "Oh, I've got a friend that has a home recording studio, and I happen to know that same exact person being a musician. And we talked about music for the first like 15 minutes of a 30-minute like work call." So I used to be, when I first got started, a little bit afraid to bring anything except the professional Brandon to the
Mm.
table. But I found the more time has passed, to your point, especially now, like people, they just want to be allowed to be a full 100% human being as opposed to just 10% of their professional self while leaving 90% of the rest of themselves, back at home or behind. So yeah,
Absolutely.
100% agree with that, man. So let's extend the question of, where do I get started? How do I, move into a first job, to like maybe things that you've done to progress from junior level early in career to now you're like middle to senior. Like, what are some things that are definite kind of things you had to grow into in order to kind of get from that first phase of your career into this one?
I think part of it just comes from like forming an opinion and based on the real experiences that I've had. I think when I first came into even pre-sales role, right? Well,
Mhm.
actually, let's take it one step further. Let's go back to my very first job where I was a software developer.
Mhm.
I at the time I thought I knew what I wanted to do, and it
Mhm.
was still very rewarding. But I feel much more fulfilled in the kind of work that I'm doing now, and that just comes with the experience of knowing what you start to learn what you don't like, or something. I won't say really don't like, but things that you would prefer in your job, and it kind of informs what you want to do next. And I think that's kind of made my steps more deliberate with every jump that I've made. I don't just make it just because I like to think I have a plan or a motivation for everything that I've done. Um, so I think that's part of it, just having that opinion and just being more confident in what I bring to the table.
Mhm.
Again, when I was more junior, just my assumption is that I'm the low man of the totem pole, so everyone knows more than me,
Yeah.
and my opinion doesn't carry as much weight. I think no regrets, but I think if I had gone back and told, newly professional Michael what to do or some advice, be confident in what you bring to the table. Be confident in your skills. You're
Mhm.
hired for a reason, and bring that confidence into everything that you do. And I think that confidence has, uh, as I've worked more, I've developed that confidence more naturally, and that informs what I do, and that makes me more valuable in front of people. I think it makes my team members more confident in putting me in front of people.
Mhm.
So just building that experience and that confidence really goes a long way. I think and actually, one of the things that you said, and thank you for bringing that up, but I think this really goes a long way too, is bringing your true self to your job, not being just purely professional all the time. If I think all my coworkers know that I'm passionate, I'm a coffee enthusiast.
Yeah.
I like kettlebelling, I like barbecue because I talk about that stuff. And and if I'm excited about it, other people tend to be excited about it, at least want to learn what I'm about. So really building that confidence in having confidence in the experiences that you bring to the table, and then also bringing your true self to the table and not being buttoned up all the time. I think those things have helped me grow in my career and build more fruitful, true relationships with both my colleagues and my clients.
Yeah. Same for me, man. I you know, software engineer also was the first job that I had. And I remember um, vividly not liking certain things about that particular job and vividly not liking, certain things that I did in the next job. And like it's been this progression of keep what you like and advance it. And then as you advance, leave behind the stuff that you don't like.
Agreed.
And as you interview and as you kind of do the research for the different roles and you ask your network the questions, so it's clear that you've got an expectation of what you're going to be doing in the next thing. It's been cool to make progress that way. And then today, the work that I do hardly feels like work. I'm like talking to friends and like
Yep.
helping customers and doing just stuff that I think is super cool. So to be compensated for that and to be able to, support a family and all of that is where it's at. So yeah, community is a huge piece of that though, because you can't get all the signals that you need just by yourself. So even
Right.
if you are that introvert, it's going to be helpful to have kind of the rest of the Wu-Tang clan around you, or Voltron, or like whatever whatever metaphor we want to use. You can't go it alone and get very far.
I'm gonna go with the Power Rangers.
Power Rangers, yeah, man. If you're watching this and you don't know who the Power Rangers are, you're too young.
The OG Power Rangers.
Yeah. So maybe let's go to how we as a community can help you, or like what are some things that some causes that you care about, or things that you would want to call people's attention to, knowing that you've got a big contingent of folks who watch these videos, and give you just some space to talk about things that you're passionate about, either inside of work or outside, where our community could help push it forward.
I think the thing that I've kind of shifted my focus to is still, I will confess, it's still work related, but the thing that I am looking to is I've been doing it in a small scale. So I'm always trying to find ways to do exactly what you're doing on a larger scale, which is how can I give back to my community, help people get into, for me, technical pre-sales, quite frankly, get more people of color into technical pre-sales. And how can I do that? I can do that on a smaller scale, but what my goal has been is, really using my larger brand in my current company to really, I love this company. I love the culture. I love everything I do. To your point, just having great conversations. I love everything about it. My goal and my focus right now is making more people of color aware of what Red Hat does, and quite frankly, bringing more people of color into the sales organization at Red Hat.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know if that's something that that I can ask you to make a call to action for this call, but just if your question is what thing am I passionate about right now, that's been something I'm actively working on
Yeah.
quite right this instant.
Yeah, if you're watching this and you're interested in getting into the technology industry and you're a Black or brown person, let me tell you that there are many companies who are looking to kind of diversify its ranks. There is an acknowledgement inside of companies and externally facing that we don't have it all buttoned up or together in terms of how to communicate with communities that are outside of like what the mainstream has been for decades and decades and decades. So to your point earlier, Michael, about like confidence to be your true and authentic self. And even if you're younger, kind of standing in a place of, I know myself, I know my community, I know what value I bring. I think being a Black or brown person who's interested in tech, and at this particular moment in time and in history is a great place to be. Tech is doing a lot of good in the world. It's changing a lot of systems. It's modernizing a lot of the way we think about stuff, from cars to housing. Think about Airbnb. There's so many people who are like living month by month in a different city now because they can work from anywhere that has an internet connection. So much of society is changing because of the technology that's coming out. So
Without a
uh,
doubt.
companies already acknowledging that we want more diversity, and then you riding the wave as a viewer of the education that Mike talked about, putting those hours in, upskilling yourself, even in like non-traditional ways, mind you, because both of us, went to university, got a degree, paid off those loans, all of
Right.
that. But there's this concept of like developed skill over like pedigree. So pedigree used to mean maybe a little bit more than it does today, but employers just now want to see the proof, like, oh, you didn't go to a fancy university, but you can give me value and I can see your body of work that you've been building and all of that. Let's talk. So it's been an interesting thing to observe over like the last 15 or 20 years. I don't know if you got any, particular thoughts about that, Mike, but I've been
Oh,
blown away.
I've seen it. I know that you and I know at least a few people that, you know, just hustle and learn and and do everything and pick up the skills they need and have just really just blown up. And I'll say one just to make an addendum to your statement,
Mhm.
and I said this earlier too, have the body of work. But again, if you're showing me that, hey, I don't know everything, but I'm making an active effort to pick up more stuff, that to me is carries a lot of weight. Not just someone you can know a lot, but if you're stagnant, not making any more progress,
Yeah.
that's one thing. But if I come across person A that knows a lot of stuff and person B that may not know as much as person A, but they're out here making things happen and actively working to get to that next step, I might be more inclined to take a look at person B for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's literally like I have a similar passion to like educate people about the technology industry. And I looked around and I didn't really know what to do, but I'm like, well, I'm locked in because of the pandemic and I've got people that I could connect with, and we could have conversations that might offer value and insight to other people. And there's no like script for this. It was purely experimental,
Yeah.
and we're trying to get the message out, and people have, been pinging on social media or emailing and asking questions. So, I'd say if you're watching this and you are not sure about something, I'll just say do it. Try to measure it, try to get as much feedback and signal from that idea as you can to know that it's like, creating the value that you think it should. But a lot of the companies that you see in the big fancy lights these days, they were founded on an experiment or like a hypothesis that nobody was sure would actually work. So I think in the Black and brown community, we haven't had maybe a safety net to be able to take a big, jump off of a cliff because we didn't have the capital or the resources and any of that stuff. But to Mike's point, the technology to be able to experiment and try, and if it doesn't work, it won't cost you a whole lot. You can experiment and fail pretty cheaply these
Yep.
days.
More cheaply,
Um,
but we did it.
yeah, I remember being in an apartment and having like all of this Cisco equipment plugged in and trying to study for like certification exams. I had so much technology plugged into one power socket that basically messed up the electrical system of our like apartment for a second there. But these days, you can open up a free account and just go to town for as little as free and for as much as maybe just a couple dollars. So if you can invest that time, see it as seed that you're planting now that can blossom into something really, really cool. A year out, 2, 10. I mean, it doesn't take sometimes that long either for you to get the ROI on the investment that you put in.
Absolutely. 100% agreed.
Yeah. Well, Mike, we've reached the end of the time, but I want to give you, a couple minutes to give the people out there, whether they be kind of part of the new kids on the block, younger generation, or middle of the road folks like us, or even the elders that kind of check into these kind of conversations to see what They say, "Oh, I'm old enough to be your mom or your grandma," but those types of folks might be checking into this as well. Any kind of last words to leave folks with as we hang it up here and get ready for the weekend?
I would just say always do the things that make you happy, to make you useful, not just for yourself, but for the other people that depend upon you. So make sure to protect your time and do those things, just to continue to be passionate and always be learning, whether it's work related or not. So I'm probably gonna find ways to make a better barbecue chicken at some point. So just that example, but
Yeah.
it doesn't always have to be professional, and really just foster the relationships with the people that you care about. And at the end of the day, that's all we have. So that's pretty much all I have to bring.
Beautifully put, man. Well, from our community to you, Michael, we salute you. We have a black man, a gentleman, a scholar, a married man, like mean guy on the barbecue. So for everything that you've brought to this conversation, we appreciate you. We thank you for your time. And yeah, when I'm back in Chicago, a brother's gonna text you. I'm gonna roll up.
I very much look forward to it. Thank you so much for considering me for your series, and good to talk to you and everything.
All right, man. Well, have a great weekend, and we will talk to each other soon, my friend.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.